Hi, Linda. Let's start a new edition of Plato's Cave.
Well, that sounds like a great idea, and I bet you have things to tell us about the economy that we should know even if we don't want to know.
Yes, well, something has happened. The Department of Justice today dropped its criminal investigation into Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. District of Columbia U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro dropped the charges just a day or so after Kevin Warsh, Trump's pick to replace Powell, testified before the Senate Judiciary Committee, shamefully pandering to Trump's wishes and fantasies throughout his testimony, including a question about whether Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. This seemingly unrelated question is of great consequence because it concerns whether Warsh will protect the Fed's independence from political pressure. If he isn't willing to stand up to Trump on something this obvious, will he stand up at all?
He used the language that
The election
was certified by Congress,
which
yeah.
is the standard line of all of Trump's toadies.
Right.
So dropping the criminal investigation was the precondition set by Republican Senator Tom Tillis, a member of the Senate Banking Committee responsible for forwarding Warsh's nomination to the full Senate in order for them to advance Warsh's nomination. So he was stopping Warsh's nomination from going over this issue. The bogus investigation was already stymieing when D.C. District Court Judge James Boasberg tossed out Pirro's subpoenas sent to Powell. Pirro claims she will continue to appeal Boasberg's squashing of the subpoenas and blah, blah, blah. The investigation has been turned over to the Inspector General for the Federal Reserve, where it will quietly die because no one is surprised by cost overruns in a federal building to be built covered in marble in the middle of D.C.
Well, why would Tillis make this a condition?
Because he's committed to the independence of the Fed, and he said, I'm not going to do this if you're trying to intimidate the current chair. I will vote with the Democrats not to forward the nomination.
So he's an actual Republican, concerned about the economy more than ideology.
Yes.
Okay, got it. I'm with you.
Now the vote can take place. This clears the way for another of Trump's lickspittles to be in charge of an important governmental function. Now, here's your economics lesson. The Fed sets interest rate targets for the federal funds rate. That is the rate of interest that banks pay one another to borrow excess reserves, which they use to make loans. Trump believes lowering this rate will stimulate the economy by making borrowing cheaper for those wishing to invest. But Trump is an idiot. People invest to make profits, not because interest rates are lower. Certainly, if the prospects for profits are strong, people will borrow money if they can to invest, but they are just as likely to do so for speculative purposes, say in AI companies, as for actual real investment and productive capacity. Lowering the federal funds rate rarely affects consumer lending rates in the short run. High rates would not facilitate investment. But the reality is that the Fed raises rates to fight inflation, and they like doing that because, well, they're mostly bankers and lenders of money in their past and future lives once they're done with the Fed. And the effects of raising rates have only indirect impacts on the average person, so the average folks don't know who's to blame for its consequences or who is benefiting. Here is the reality. Interest rates affect asset valuation and what assets can be sold for because the interest rates are used to measure the value of future income from that asset. Interest rates also affect liquidity preference. This is people's desire to hold money. When interest rates are high, people put money into interest-bearing assets. When interest rates are low, they hold cash hoards. Investment is a function of positive expectation for future profits. These expectations are not based on risk analysis because of radical uncertainty. There is no probability distribution for unknown and unknowable future events. Trump is an uncertainty-creating machine of mass production.
Yeah, that's what he's brought to the presidency and the economy, isn't it?
Yeah, massive uncertainty. All of his policies to date have pushed us toward a recession, so nothing the Fed can do will overcome the negative expectations for profitability of real investments. Though lower interest rates will fuel the speculative fever pushing the stock market higher, these transactions are transfer payments from one individual to another and do not affect the real economy very much, despite Trump's fetishization of indexes like the Dow Industrial Index or Standard & Poor's, which measures these transactions between individuals. Now, Trump is not completely wrong about everything. Don't get me wrong. Low, stable interest rates are the best thing for our economy.
Right.
The stable interest rate reduces one element of uncertainty. No increase in interest rates will offset the price increases caused by tariffs and the energy price spikes created by the disastrous war on Iran, which Trump has already lost. This ends this week's economic lesson.
On when's the quiz?
Actually, the outcome of this is going to be in front page news. So.
I was listening to an analysis today coming from the UK, and they were using the word stagflation, and I haven't heard that as a possibility for a while. They were talking about it within the next 3 to 6 months.
Yes, stagflation is a term that was coined right after the first oil crisis in 1973.
I see. Okay.
Which pushed the price of everything up because of the rapid, I think, 40% increase in the price of oil overnight. As a result, since everything at that time was used producing fossil fuels, it pushed up the price of everything. And because firms were suffering from this, they were laying off workers. So you had simultaneously high inflation with high unemployment. There used to be an empirical relationship called the Phillips curve, where we thought that if you had high inflation, at least you'd have high employment.
Right.
We had this relationship called the Phillips curve, that when there was high inflation, you'd also have high employment. It would be the wages going up that was pushing the inflation. And empirically, this seemed to be correct, that there was an inverse relationship between prices and unemployment. Now, this was an empirical relationship that seemed to hold from about 1945 to 1970s and went out the window. And it's very controversial anyway, except in right-wing conservative economics. And the term stagflation was coined because of the simultaneous inflation and unemployment. The inflation was so high that by the end of the decade, it was close to 20%. Oh. And the Fed did raise rates up to that amount to squeeze that inflation out, which almost cost Reagan re-election because the economy was going into the toilet, and Reagan's policies would have put it even further in the toilet. So he reversed course. Jimmy Carter lost the election because of a $63 billion deficit. In 2 years, Reagan managed to get it up to $268 billion, all of it spent on the military. That's the stimulus. But stagflation was that period, and we haven't had that for a long time. We called it the Great Moderation, fell apart during the financial crisis of 2007, 2008. We thought we were recovering it. COVID came. Then we thought we were recovering from that. And then the disaster that is Donald Trump, within 100 days, destroying the international trade order and neoliberalism in general, has put us in this situation where it seems to be returning. And that's a frightening prospect because there's no clear policy about how to deal with it.
Well, that seems to be part of what the conversation was about, is that level of uncertainty is being compounded by the reduction in the flow of oil through the Gulf of Hormuz with no clear plan on how to fix it, that it will create stagflation again.
Yeah.
And it's an analysis, I suppose it's necessary, given there's absolutely no way to predict what's going to happen next.
Yeah, the notion that there's going to be some sort of rapid peace settlement where Trump is involved is ridiculous because he won't stay off Truth Social, right? Every day he makes these threatening gestures, and you can't conduct negotiations seriously. And I mean, these folks from Iran are pretty hardcore.
Absolutely.
This is going to take some time. And on top of that, they're going to demand that some fee at the Gulf is paid in terms of reparations for the damage done to Iran.
Well, true. The other thing that I've been following is if they keep the blockade up long enough, and I mean CENTCOM, the United States, and so no oil can come through, then all of those storage tanks on Karg Island will fill up. And once they're full, it starts to clog the oil flow from where it's being pumped.
They will have to shut down the pumping of oil. And when they do, that's hard to do. And it's even harder to restart.
And that's what they're saying, that it will cripple the economy of Iran because it's so hard to get it started again, but it will also cripple the economy of the rest of the world. So it's a very, very difficult place for everyone in the world to be, and it's all the fault of the President of the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff that we're doing right now.
I would agree. Given the economy pre-attacking Iran, this is compounding the problem, is what you're saying.
The other thing that's an increased problem in this circumstance in the United States is that the distribution of income has changed so dramatically. So people in the top 20% of income are not feeling the consequences of this, and they're very politically active. The others in the economy who are already feeling the inflation, the price going up, and all the things that come with that, no one's paying attention to what they need. Affordability's gone out the window.
Yeah, he won't mention it anymore.
I was looking at an analysis this week of what the average car price is in the United States, and it's pretty scary. And in fact, just about the lowest price you can get a pretty no-frills car for a family is over $20,000. And that's because we won't allow the imports of cheaper cars from outside the United States. I mean, if we open the doors to Chinese electric cars, they would probably be in the $10,000 to $15,000 range, but it would also eliminate the gas prices for most people who are buying a car.
Yeah, I think that...
So cheap automobiles is fundamental to the American working class.
I do agree that it's the working class, but also I think they should be focusing more carefully on postmenopausal women who are retired, because when we get pissed, we can cause trouble. I keep thinking, what do people do who have a modest retirement plan plus Social Security? They're going to have to start making choices between groceries and gas, period, just like the working people are.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's a group that can galvanize in an election.
The other thing is, since Trump has stopped all non-fossil fuel research, energy research, there's nothing on the horizon coming that will relieve this burden. In fact, he's made life even more difficult because the transition to other forms of energy has been essentially put on hold.
Exactly. So he is the devil's spawn.
The perfect storm, you know.
I like mine better.
I know, and it's probably more accurate. It's probably true, knowing his father.
Oh, okay.
We can talk about Fred sometime.
Yeah, let's do that next time. Since we're already talking about shitty things, can I give report number 2 on enshittification?
Yes, I had a great time last week explaining this concept to my grandchildren over the hysterical laughter of their mother.
It is such a fun word.
I love it.
Okay, I just want to remind our listeners, first of all, it does have 3 T's. And that last week I introduced our loyal listeners to Cory Doctorow's book, Why Everything Suddenly Got Worse and What to Do About It. As this podcast media maven, self-assigned, I drew attention to how Facebook has become bad for users and bad for business, but very good for profits to Facebook. Facebook plays a significant role in mediating messages for profit all over the world, although its value dropped because of competition from other platforms and the disastrous investment in AI multiverse development that it turns out no one really wanted. So what was announced today is that they're going to shed 20% of their workforce.
Wow.
So that they can substitute AI for those jobs. Well, good luck with that because the multiverse was already losing money in the billions. So
I think by this time, the people on Facebook are advertisers looking to see their own ads and other people's ads because I don't seem to get anything in my feed from any of the people I'm friends with. But they may have all left.
today I thought I'd review Dr. O's analysis of the Enshittification of Amazon.
Go for it.
Now, it may seem that Amazon has little to do with controlling the digital media world, so why am I jumping into it? But that's a huge misconception. Amazon is poised to become a major player in the world of media production, distribution, control, and AI. Jeff Bezos has already purchased the Washington Post. But if the predictions bear fruit, we ain't seen nothing yet.
In fact, he was described by Robert Reich, I think, as the worst of our contemporary robber barons, largely because he's so underestimated.
Okay, so we know where that award goes.
Yeah.
Excellent. But I would say he's joining the club of what I call bored billionaires buying media. And I don't really mean they're bored. I mean, they have so much money. They need to find more and more ways to use it to make themselves richer and richer and more influential without having to be concerned about losses. And this is where I think the capitalist model is being broken.
Yeah. And they have so much money, there's nothing they can buy except other companies. And they're paying prices for the companies that ensure that they cannot possibly ever earn a profit, but they don't care because it's about control and power. It's
Absolutely.
not about profit anymore.
That's absolutely right, I think, because that's what I thought.
Linda, you taught me that's a tautology.
Yeah, I'm sorry I taught you so well. Okay, when I'm talking about bored billionaires, I want you to think of the typical character in 1920s and 1930s films and novels, the playboy, who frequents the gambling spas of Europe with money to burn. He couldn't care less if he loses. It's just something flashy to do with his money. And because it is an example of conspicuous waste, his social status and influence increases. Now, is that conspicuous waste or conspicuous consumption?
Conspicuous consumption is conspicuous waste.
Oh, good. Okay, so Veblen uses both terms.
Yes, and he is the only economist who's ever developed a theory of waste.
That's why we love to read him. Mm-hmm. Okay, Bezos is positioned to join the bored billionaires who are determining what we see and hear because of the profitability of the Amazon marketing model, which is a prime example of enshittification, if ever there was one. So today I want to review how Amazon has made such enormous profits in an essentially unregulated marketplace, and then briefly comment on the entry into the digital entertainment industry. I'll take a deeper dive into that and the AI investment when I have time, which won't be today. Because I'm starting with stage one, how Amazon made everything good for customers. That's the first step towards enshittification. Like Facebook, Amazon raised a fortune from early investors. Then he raised a larger fortune by listing it on the stock market, and then he used the fortune to subsidize many goods below cost, to subsidize shipping, and generous returns policies. So of course we all flocked to Amazon. Unlike Facebook, Amazon users do not automatically lock themselves in, so there was not a high switching cost. In other words, to leave Facebook, you got to leave all your friends behind. But one user's participation in Amazon doesn't make Amazon more valuable to other users, as Facebook does with increasing contacts. These three things made shopping anywhere else but Amazon seem inconvenient, which is the equivalent of the switching cost. First, Prime membership. Second, digital rights management. And three, predatory pricing. Okay, Prime membership means you're paying for shipping a year in advance. So you're going to want to use Amazon to purchase products because you've already invested in the shipping. The next thing is to ask the question, who owns the audiobooks, movies, ebooks, and e-magazines that the user purchases? Well, they are sold with what is called DRM, or Digital Rights Management, which requires using apps that Amazon controls. That means leaving Amazon means you lose all the media you bought from Amazon. So that's another equivalent of a switching cost. And third, Amazon has eliminated small independent e-businesses by selling below cost. So those are the three things that keep people at Amazon. Stage 2 is to be good to business customers at a cost of being less good to users. Initially, Amazon paid full price for goods and sold them at below cost to customers. It's a strange marketing plan.
They're going to make it up on the volume.
That's what they're thinking. And
That's called the short-weighted bankruptcy, by the way.
They also subsidized returns and customer service for the people who were selling their goods on Amazon. And the search engine put the best matches for shopper searches at the top of the page in Amazon, which benefited sellers with quality goods at fair prices. Okay, that's the utopia time. Then they brought in the so-called flywheel. As sellers grew dependent on access to Amazon's customers, Amazon demanded higher discounts from those merchants, which brings in more customers, which makes the platform even more desirable, which leads Amazon to demand even deeper discounts from the business end of things, from those trying to sell.
One of the things I discovered in the article I read today is that Amazon, if they find out that one of their vendors is selling the goods to, say, Walmart or Costco, and Walmart or Costco is selling it cheaper than Amazon will, they require that the vendor go to those other corporations and tell them to raise their price, or they will get kicked off of Amazon.
Absolutely.
And that damages both Costco and Walmart because people are looking to see what the price is on Amazon before they go to Walmart and Costco. So it's locking in an anti-competitive edge.
That's right.
And this is illegal monopolization, but we haven't enforced those laws since the 1980s.
Yes, and
There are attempts, though, at this point.
that's exactly what I was going to turn our attention to, so now I don't have to pay too much or spend too much time on it. Because stage 3 is when you turn the whole enterprise into a giant pile of shit. This is how Amazon transfers shifting profits away from the end users and away from businesses to their corporation. First, it creams off merchants' best-selling items to clone them because they can monitor what's ordered, and relegating the original merchant way down in its search results.
Cool.
It also requires essentially mandatory fees from the merchant. So a merchant gives up a high proportion of each sale to Prime. But if the merchant uses another distributor to send its product, then it falls way down on the search list. For fulfillment by Amazon, a merchant sends its product to Amazon to be packed and shipped, but if a merchant ships through another logistics company, the merchant is relegated to low on the search engine. Amazon makes so much money charging merchants to deliver through its fulfillment service that that service is wholly subsidized by the merchants.
See, this is where Trump should take some lessons. It's really good to see an example of efficient evil compared to the bumbling shit we get from the administration.
So Amazon makes $38 billion every year charging merchants for search placement. In the interest of full disclosure, my novel is listed on Amazon. I didn't ask for that. The publisher put it there. But I just figured out that, if I paid them enough money, they could move my book up to the bestseller list.
I'm not even going to comment on that because you didn't give me a copy.
Should I give it? Buy it.
You expect me to buy it from Amazon?
It's available on all other major platforms.
I bought your other 2 books, too.
Merchants increase their prices as a result, right?
Yes.
And this is your point, when merchants raise their prices on Amazon, they're required to raise their prices everywhere else,
Yes.
even in their own direct sales stores. This means that the highest priced products are at the top of the list at a rate of about 25%. That's what you have to pay in to get up to the list. So that the products at the top of the list are now low quality and high priced. The merchant is paid for the placement. Amazon does not have a strong anti-fraud record in finding out how many of the ratings are actually paid for. So that means, according to Dr. O, that Amazon is at the terminal stage of enshittification. Now, you touched on this. What makes this all possible? Well, the turn away from antitrust laws. I found this interesting, and you have to walk me through it. In the period of reform, late 1890s, certainly into the early 1900s,
Right.
Antitrust laws were passed because the size of large corporations or trusts were seen as economic threats simply because of their size. As Dr. O says, once a company is too big to fail, it becomes too big to jail. And then it becomes too big to care. So we've arrived at the moment when billionaires are just too big to care about the consequences of their decisions.
Sure.
The reason, starting with Carter, that there was a counter movement against the antitrust laws is because of an economic theory called consumer welfare standard theory, which eroded antitrust assumptions because the reasoning was monopolies become large and powerful because the quality of the goods and services they offer, which is why the government should not regulate the marketplace.
Yeah. The antitrust laws were put in place in a sort of haphazard way. The Sherman Antitrust Act made being a monopoly illegal.
Right.
But you can become a monopoly by all your competitors going out of business. You didn't do anything. So that they realized that a company could end up being in violation by doing nothing except being good.
Mm-hmm.
So they passed the Clayton Act and the FTC Act in the early 20th century, which outlawed anti-competitive behavior. In other words, if you took actions to become a monopoly or a conspiracy and restraint of trade or a conspiracy to raise prices, which pretty much is exactly what Amazon's doing, then that was made illegal. And in fact, the Reagan administration, when it came into office, said they just weren't going to worry about this anymore because of the theory you're talking about. There were 2 aspects to it. The first is monopolies often become large because they're very successful, very efficient at what they're doing, and part of that is the scale economies they reach. The reason American Motors went out of business is they never could reach the level of production that the other big 3 could. So their prices were higher, their products, so they went out of business. The other 3 didn't do anything to make that happen. So you get this concentration because of efficiency, but what became a bigger consideration is that the competitors of American firms were often sponsored by their governments. So in fact, the other countries were building huge manufacturing companies in Germany and in Japan to compete, and us keeping our businesses small, in particular our banks as well, put them at a disadvantage internationally. So everybody benefited from these big efficient companies, and it enhanced the competition among the big companies. And of course, we just took it in the chops in terms of prices. like I said earlier, $20,000 for a family car? Come on.
It reminds me of that song in the musical 1953, Little Abner. What's good for General Bull Moose is good for the USA. Well, I think the head of General Motors was the one who
Yeah,
said it,
yeah.
but then it was set to music.
Oh, okay.
Now let's look at how Amazon's interest in media ownership relates to Prime. There's a very informative online essay entitled Cinematic Capitalism: How Amazon is Building the Future of Cinema and Commerce by Frankie Tabor, who is an AI and automation specialist. She has an online blog. And here's what she said. Over time, Amazon layered on more perks to Prime, evolving it into a bundle of services including streaming, video, music, and more. In 2011, Amazon took a decisive step into Hollywood by forming Amazon Studios and launching Prime Video as a streaming service. End of quote. The intention was not to make a profit on what Amazon produced, but to draw more subscribers to Amazon Prime, with the idea that these new customers would then use their Prime subscription to purchase the overpriced, poor quality goods on Amazon's commercial platform. Amazon Studios was formed in 2010 and it merged with MGM in 2023. This meant Amazon acquired MGM's considerable catalog and owns the intellectual property. Amazon plans to use this MGM content as the basis for spin-offs. Key to this is that Amazon, unlike Netflix, for example, can use its entertainment content as a loss leader to lure viewers to other platforms and also to sell related merchandise. The aim is to engage, quote, customers in every facet of their lives, whether they are shopping, reading on a Kindle, asking Alexa to play music, or binge watching a new series, close quote. Now, I'd like to return to this at another time, when we have more time, Bill, to explore the implications of this, the entry into AI, which is a big part of this competition, and other aspects of conglomerate ownership of the media. How is this affecting cultural production? But for now, I just leave you to ponder how Amazon's venture into entertainment opens new vistas for the enshittification of popular culture.
An interesting recruitment tool that is used by Amazon Prime is it's given free to all college students.
Is it now?
If you have that wonderful little .edu at the end of your email address, Prime is free. However, they will keep pestering you to enroll in the other services beyond the free shipping. This is reportedly to make it cheaper for students to buy their books from Amazon, which are, again, priced 20% or more less than they would be in a college bookstore or at a commercial bookstore. So there's a huge incentive in Amazon for students to go online, buy their books, and get them shipped to them for free. But once you're getting the proportion of the population going to college acclimated to always using Prime for shipping because they aren't paying for it, then they graduate.
Yes.
And so you've already trained everyone who's got a college education to use Prime as their primary source of purchases.
I see. Oh, these people really are clever, aren't
Oh,
they?
yeah, because these are the people with money.
So, okay, so the college store at our little hideaway here in upstate New York became a Barnes & Noble outlet. This is very common now across the country for
Yes.
commercial booksellers to take over. Is this part of that competition then?
Absolutely. Barnes & Noble will take a course list and they will bundle it. They will bundle all the books that a student wants once they get the student schedule for a fee and put them together, actually in the least expensive form that they possibly can, a combination of ebooks, used books, whatever they can get. But you sign up for the service, and of course, people in the humanities are subsidizing people in disciplines with very expensive textbooks. But I should note that this was done because of the fee that Barnes & Noble would give the colleges for this service. And the contract's over, and Barnes & Noble will be exiting our little outlet here, except they will provide the service of the bundles for the students. We're taking back control of the bookstore.
Oh, what led to that?
I don't think they were paying us enough, frankly. I think the store is more profitable. The other thing, hopefully we'll turn it back into a bookstore rather than a mug and T-shirt shop.
No, I totally agree with you.
Because it was the only bookstore in our community.
Yeah, I know. And it was where you went for important things, like children's books were very well represented in the store at that time.
And,
other books, too.
Yeah, popular books, but also books on subject matter that even a commercial bookstore probably wouldn't have purchased. And everybody in our community, not just the students, went there to buy books.
Yeah.
Now we buy them from Amazon because the shipping's free.
Okay, people. I think I have now explained Amazon's Enshittification without even mentioning what they're doing with AI, but I will next time. But you have yet more to tell us today, whether we like it or not.
Well, there's two things that have gone on. Virginia successfully redistricted to create safe Democratic districts following California's similar move, basically engaging in gerrymandering. Both were in response to the gerrymandering in Texas at Trump's suggestion to create more Republican districts in that state. The Texas redistricting, along with the Safe Elections Act, is an attempt by Trump to steal the midterm elections. So far, it's failing. Florida is now considering such a move, and even Republicans have warned Governor DeSantis against such a move. Now, before you go crazy, this is not because the Republicans are standing up for representative democracy. It's because they can count. Gerrymandering is a numbers and mapping game. But the Republicans are not a majority party. Democrats and independents vastly outnumber them. Republicans have noticed the terrifying trend that they are losing most elections leading up to the midterms, and they are seeing a 20% swing towards Democratic candidates in currently Republican districts, even when their candidates still win. In terms of strategic redistricting, Democrats have the numbers, especially in standard metropolitan areas in every state, to out-gerrymander the Republicans. Plus, gerrymandering is offensive to independents who Republicans must woo to win statewide elections in swing states. So this is a change from when they go low, go high. This is like when they go low, well, we better go low too to survive, and the Democrats have the numbers. So if the Republicans keep pressing this, they're likely to have worse results.
Especially since the changes in voter approval very high among the independent voters.
Yeah, and then another really weird thing. The Senate passed a budget resolution bill to fund ICE and the Department of Homeland Security. Oddly, this was a reconciliation bill. Why is this odd? There's no House bill to reconcile with the Senate version. One might ask, WTF? This is presented as a demonstration to the House by the Senate that they can pass a resolution bill that would fund ICE if the idiots in the House would pass a bill of any kind, even if it didn't include ICE money. This is really weird. Because in the House currently, they can't pass a bill with ICE because there are enough Republicans voting with the Democrats to block such a bill.
Correct.
Okay. This end run around the House's responsibility to pass a budget bill and send it to the Senate, as is suggested by that little document known as the U.S. Constitution, just further demonstrates that the Republicans cannot govern with the presidency, the House of Representatives, the U.S. Senate, and the Supreme Court all in their control. In a similar vein, if the Republicans support the war in Iran and all of Trump's war crimes resulting from his failed attempt to prosecute this war, then the Republicans in the House should just pass a war powers bill authorizing the president's use of the military to prosecute this war. Heck, for good measure, they could throw in a war powers resolution for his invasion of Washington, D.C., Minnesota, and other places where he's deployed the National Guard and U.S. troops in the U.S. I mean, they're doing nothing.
There would be a number of Republicans who would be highly tempted by your ridiculous proposal, let's be honest. The Speaker of the House cannot face up to the fact that he feels powerful because he toadies up to Trump. He isn't. They can't get anything done.
They have passed 37 bills this year, rather than the 200 and some they usually pass in a year. This is total paralysis of legislative, and they have the majority in both houses.
Yes, and I think that points to what is actually going on right now, which is that the MAGA party affiliates are not of one mind and never have been, but they coalesced because of Trump. He's a charismatic, I don't understand it, but people think of him as charismatic. He was able to pull together a really bizarro coalition, and so they came together. But now that he's really a lame duck president and he's proving to make so many ridiculous and costly mistakes, the rifts within MAGA are starting to show very, very clearly.
Yeah, it's so frequent over the last 10 years that I've agreed with Tucker Carlson on anything. Marjorie Taylor Greene and I are having lunch on a regular basis. I mean, what's going on, man? It's falling apart real quickly.
He didn't do what he promised to do, but it was each faction had a different thing that they wanted him to see through. And so they coalesced under him, but his record of general nincompoopery is leading them to fractionalize.
I like buffoonery better.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Next week, I am going to take a deeper dive into slopaganda, which is it's the academic term. Okay,
I love this.
Scholars made it up.
Yeah,
Actual scholars made up the word slopaganda to refer to the AI-generated war propaganda that's taking YouTube by storm. People are really enjoying what's coming out of Iran. I want to take a closer look at that. I also want to take a closer look at some of the larger implications of it. So tune in, and you'll have more to say about the economy next time, right?
Yeah, we should also look at the AI-generated stuff on Truth Social.
Didn't we take a look at Trump as Jesus?
Yeah, and then they have a new one where he's going through all that, and Jesus comes down and throws him away.
What?
In other words, there's like sacrilege porn coming out.
Okay. Well,
I'm
sure.
We'll look into this.
No, you will look into sacrilege porn. I'll stick with slopaganda. We'll say bye-bye and hope you have a good time until you hear from us next week.